All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're going to uncover the fascinating, kind of hidden business model behind those glowing, crowded shopping malls we all visit on the weekends. I mean, whenever you walk into one of these massive centers, you're instantly surrounded by dazzling lights, famous brands, and swarms of people riding the escalators. It looks like a pure paradise of consumption, right? But have you ever actually stopped to wonder how the owner of this incredibly luxurious property really makes their money? It's a question that completely changes how you view these giant structures.
You'd probably assume these massive properties survive just by collecting a flat rent from shop owners. Like, well, they just lease the space out, right? Actually, the answer to whether they just run on standard rent is a hard no. The business model of a modern mall is way more clever and, honestly, way deeper than you might think. It's a finely tuned economic machine, and today we're going to map out exactly how the whole shebang works.
So let's get into Section 1, the real mall earnings.
The main source of a mall's income is actually what's called a hybrid rental model. Here's how it works. Stores have to pay a minimum guarantee. This means whether the shop is completely packed or sells absolutely nothing at all, they are handing over a fixed base rent every single month. But here's the kicker. There's also the revenue share. Let's say it's festival season and a brand's sales just completely boom. Well, the mall owner actually takes a predetermined cut of those total earnings, usually somewhere between 5 to 15%. So, the crucial takeaway here is that mall owners aren't just your standard landlords, they're direct financial partners in the success of the stores inside. If a store has a blockbuster month, the mall owner gets a slice of that pie. They've literally tied their own revenue to the prosperity of the brands they house. The richer the brand gets within those walls, the more money goes straight into the pockets of the mall owner. It is an incredibly profitable setup that basically ensures the house always wins.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 2. The magic of anchor stores. If you've ever paid attention, you'll notice every mall has a few select, gigantic brands located right at the entrances or taking up massive amounts of space. These retail giants are known in the biz as anchor tenants. We're talking about heavy hitters, recognizable names like Zara, H&M, Lifestyle, or Reliance Digital. Their sole purpose within the mall's ecosystem is to magnetically pull thousands of people, which the industry calls footfall, right into the building. And this brings up the absolute biggest irony of mall economics. Get this, these multi-million-dollar anchor brands, they often pay almost nothing in rent. Like in some cases, it's practically zero. Now, you're probably wondering, why on earth would a mall owner give up all that premium square footage for free? Well, it's because these anchor brands are the bait. They bring in the massive crowds the mall desperately needs to survive. So while the huge anchor pays next to nothing, the tiny little kiosks nearby are shelling out an absolute fortune for a fraction of the space.
It's basically a brilliant three-step cycle. Step 1, the massive anchor store brings in the footfall. Step 2, once those crowds are inside, they don't just stay in the anchor store, right? They wander around, they window shop at the smaller stores, grab a coffee at the cafes, and buy things from the little kiosks in the middle of the walkways. And then, step 3, the mall makes its massive rental profits by extracting heavy rent from those smaller dependent businesses. The mall owner is basically subsidizing the big guys because they act as giant magnets feeding the small guys, who in turn pay the highest rent per square foot.
Let's peel back another layer with Section 3, hidden revenue streams.
So on one side, we have the visible income, stuff like the store rent and that revenue share we just talked about. But on the flip side, there's this massive secondary economy of invisible income streams. These are revenue sources that most shoppers barely even register as they're walking through the doors. But they are absolutely crucial to the mall's bottom line.
Let's actually break these invisible streams down. First up, parking fees. Thousands of cars enter a mall daily. Now, a parking ticket might seem like a super small charge to you, but by the end of the month, that translates into millions in revenue. Second, advertising. Every large digital screen, every elevator wrap, those big pillar ads you see inside, brands are paying hundreds of thousands of rupees to place them there. And finally, we have CAM, or Common Area Maintenance Charges. The mall doesn't actually pay for the running of its own elevators, air conditioning, security, or cleaning out of its own pocket. No way. Instead, it passes these expenses directly onto every single shopkeeper, charging them per square foot just to maintain the building.
But, no machine is invincible. Let's look at Section 4, the e-commerce threat.
With the massive explosion of e-commerce giants, think Amazon, Myntra, all of them, consumers suddenly had zero reason to visit a physical mall just to shop. I mean, think about it. If you can buy a shirt or a new gadget from your phone with a quick tap and just have it delivered right to your doorstep, why on earth would you navigate traffic, pay for parking, and deal with massive crowds? This online shopping boom severely impacted the traditional mall business, creating the very real, terrifying prospect of entirely empty shopping centers. To survive, they had to completely pivot. Welcome to Section 5, New Form Experience Centers.
Malls had to transform from mere shopping hubs into what the industry now calls experience centers. The old mall was purely about retail, just rows and rows of clothes and consumer goods. But to adapt, the new mall is dedicating massive amounts of square footage to actual experiences. We're talking huge cinema halls, interactive gaming zones like Time Zone, and sprawling, diverse food courts.
So the big takeaway here is that the modern mall is explicitly designed to keep you inside for hours. They want you there to catch a movie, play some arcade games, just hang out. Because they know for a fact that if they can just get you to spend time in the building, you'll eventually get hungry, you'll eventually get bored, and you will eventually spend money. They aren't just selling products anymore, they're selling time and experiences. I'll leave you with this final thought for the next time you visit a mall. When you pull into that parking lot or grab a massive bucket of popcorn at the cinema, remember this explainer. You aren't just out for a casual weekend stroll. Every ticket, every single snack, and every hour you spend there is a perfectly calculated gear turning in a brilliantly complex and highly profitable economic machine. So, what do you think? Next time you're paying for mall parking, do you realize you're fueling this exact cycle? Keep questioning how the world around you actually works, and thanks for exploring this with me today.